Hey there, guys. It's Big Rob. Just guy over 50, nobody special, cancer and stroke survivor. I want to talk a little bit today about some of the videos I've been seeing on YouTube lately. A couple of people just talking about nurses and nursing and healthcare, how hard it is for nurses to be working in today's healthcare environment. And while I appreciate some of the sentiments for some of those videos, I want to make a couple of things perfectly clear. Healthcare in America isn't about health, and it's certainly not about care. The fact of the matter is the American healthcare system is neither healthy, nor does anyone care. And so the reason I say that is because we have a healthcare system that is designed around pushing pharmaceuticals down a person's face for profit. Excuse me. We have a healthcare system that profits off of human suffering. It profits off of human illness, chronic disease, et cetera, et cetera. And so, why would the healthcare system be interested in curing people when that, in fact, would cut into pharmaceutical companies' profits? And so I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. The manufacturers for these genetically manipulated injections they made people take over the last couple of years profited by billions of dollars. I guess 40 or 50 new billionaires in the pharmaceutical industry were created sort of out of this catastrophe, alleged catastrophe. My own personal experience with the healthcare system in the United States, I've been a registered nurse since 1996. I became an LPN in 93. And was a paramedic EMT for a while as well. And so one of the things that you get to the end of a decades-long career and you start realizing that American healthcare isn't as much about taking care of people as much as they say it is about taking care of people. It really isn't. It is about profit, generating profit, and that means taking nurses and wringing as much work out of them, production work out of them, as they can, holding them to impossible standards of care, staffing them as lightly as they can, and paying them as little as they can. And that's corporate healthcare in America. There's no reason, for example, that you should see, a nurse on a med-surg unit taking care of 8 patients, or even 6 patients is excessive in my view. There's no reason you should see an emergency room nurse taking care of 5 or 6 or 8 patients. The truth of the matter is that nurse is not taking care of those patients. They're having to go without. They're having to go without pain management. They're having to go without medications. They're having to go without things like getting antibiotics and things. It's just super unsafe. And the fact of the matter is, no matter how much lip service they pay towards that, the reality is 100,000 people a year are dying of medical mistakes. And those medical mistakes can be laid squarely at the feet of the C-suite folks, the folks who are in charge of running the numbers and squeezing as much profit as they can out of the hospital system that was purchased by probably a venture capital group. So keep that in mind when you go to the emergency room, is that they really, if they're more focused on getting you back as quick as possible, chances are pretty good your health care, your immediate situation is not a priority. Getting your butt in a chair in the back so that the physicians and the nurses get that little checkbox, and the C-suite people aren't paged to let them know that somebody's been waiting in the waiting room for 4 or 5 minutes. Then that's what's going to happen for you. The other part of that is, healthcare in our country has become more of an exercise of giving pills and giving fluids and antibiotics and things like that. There's some science in there, but by and large, for most people, you come into the hospital and we're dealing with what? We're dealing with alcoholics. We're dealing with drug addiction. People who have destroyed their body through morbid obesity. And I could get onto the food supply and what it's doing to human beings, but that's another video. But that's what we're dealing with as nurses, 400 or 500 pound people who refuse to take care of themselves. And so they're burdening the healthcare system with their chronic illnesses. And so it's not fat shaming to say that a person who is 5'1" and 400 pounds is going to get diabetes, because they do. They do have diabetes. They just don't know it yet. Or if they do know it, then they're not going to manage their blood sugar like they should. So now you're in the hospital generating a $100, $200, $300,000 hospital bill that you have no hope of paying. No one's going to pay it. But you're there and you're generating that hospital bill, and these nurses and doctors are being forced to care for you. They're getting paid, hopefully. But at the end of the day, the hospital says that, oh, yeah, they're not paying their bills, and they do a little bit of charity, but by and large, the federal government's going to step in and help them out with that every single year. So it's not healthcare. It's just kind of propping you up and tuning you up and getting you back out there so we can see you again in a few weeks or a few months. But the other part of that is that nobody cares. Nobody seems to care. We can talk about this as nurses all we want to, over and over again, but the reality is the public doesn't seem to care. Your politicians certainly don't care that Monsanto is poisoning your food supply. Your politicians certainly don't care that Dow DuPont has been poisoning the environment for decades, since the 1930s. They don't seem to care. Are they being paid off? Who knows? But they don't seem to care. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't care that Teflon has been poisoning people for decades, because they can come up with new and inventive chemotherapy agents and other types of drugs to profit off of the fact you've been getting poisoned by another company. So I guess when I say that they don't care, I guess what that means is we belong to a species of animal that is like no other on the planet. And so our species is absolutely willing to enrich themselves by poisoning the environment, by poisoning your body, by poisoning your water supply, poisoning your food supply. And they're happy to inject you with all kinds of experimental drugs because they have immunity granted to them by politicians who are paid off by them. So I guess that's what I mean by nobody cares. That's because your politicians and the people that you elected into positions of power and authority over you have decided that your lives are not worth caring about. The only thing they're worth caring about is getting reelected and getting their campaign treasury bolstered a little bit, and even personally enriched. I mean, I know some of these politicians spend a little bit of time in Congress and the Senate and come out multimillionaires. Insider trading, maybe, who knows? But they don't care. And so if you're looking at healthcare to save your problems, save your life, and solve your problems, it's not gonna, okay? So be aware of that every time you go into the hospital, when you go to see your doctor. Challenge, question them, challenge and question them. And if they're uncomfortable with you asking questions or challenging their opinions, find another doctor. There are physicians out there. I personally have one who's pretty dialed in. He's been doing things his way for the last several decades. I've got a couple. I had one in Oregon who was a really good guy, old paramedic. Basically listened to what I have to say. Talked a little bit about certain medications that could be given, but the reality was, he says, they probably won't help you. What will help you is lose 20 pounds, stop eating red meat, et cetera, which I won't do. Just be aware that healthcare is not healthcare in America anymore. And I don't know that in any other first world nation that healthcare really is much in the way of healthcare there either. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Big Rob here, stroke survivor, cancer survivor. I'd like to do a video on some of the supplements I'm taking. I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody, but I do take a few supplements after my stroke that are allegedly help with brain health and brain circulation. So, the exercises are going pretty well. I'm starting to recover a lot better. I'm walking without a walker or a cane. Still a little bit of a struggle to get around. My brain-wise, life gets frustrating sometimes, but learning to meditate my way out of it, I guess. And that doesn't mean drinking a bottle of booze or piling a bunch of food down my throat, especially junk food. That means just kind of taking better self-care, changing occupations, trying to figure out a calmer way to prosecute this nursing life. So anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Hope you're doing well. And remember what I said about healthcare. It's neither healthy and nobody cares. Peace.